I don't know nothing what to tell you unless you ask me.
Okay, well, Barbara Blake, and I'm talking to Miss Carrie Gray in Avon on a beautiful April morning. And Miss Gray, what brought you to Hatteras Island in the first place?
Well, I married Ellis Gray. He was in the Coast Guard on Long Island. And I come down here in 1932, well, for the first time. And when we got married, I come down in 31. And then we went back and lived a couple of years on Long Island, and then we moved down here.
Okay.
And this was an old church. It's a Methodist church, North they call it. They split up the original churches down the road.
Okay. So what year did you actually move here?
In, let's see, I would say 32.
Okay. So when you moved here, the Park Service wasn't even established yet.
No, but boy, it's as good the Park Service come, or we wouldn't even have nothing to look at.
Right. Do you remember when they first came and presented this idea?
Well, I don't remember too much about it, but I remember there was a lot of flab going.
Right.
Some for and some against.
Right.
But I was always for it.
Yeah. And so coming here, you lived on Long Island before you lived here?
Yeah, Patchogue. I was born there.
Oh, I have a friend from Patchogue.
You do?
Uh-huh. She's, her name's Sheila O'Neill, and her father was a history teacher in one of the high schools there, I guess.
Do you know what street she lived on,
No,
just in case?
I sure don't, but I know she had 10 kids in her family.
How about that? Boys, they used to have big families back then, didn't they?
Yes, they sure did. So, what was it shocking to you to move from Patchogue, New York to Hatteras Island?
Well, to say the least, it was.
Uh-huh.
We come down and had no roads nowhere. It's just, car guts. And we rode the beach down part of the way, and then on the sandy car ruts.
Mm-hmm.
And the cattle was roving, the horses all roved free.
Oh
And,
my gosh, and what did you think?
Tell you what I thought. After we bought the old church and moved up here, the outhouse was back there in the marsh, and there was no trees. It was all the saltwater grass. And I went out to the outhouse, and when I turned to come back, there was this old brindle bull between me and the house. And I was stuck out there
Oh no.
for about 2 hours. He was a gentle old thing, but I was from New York, and I didn't know nothing about gentle bulls.
Maybe he was old Buck.
He could have been. But after a while, he finally moved on, and I got out.
And were you a new bride then?
Yeah, I was 17.
And did you think, what in the world did I get myself into?
It was different. It was different. Everybody was nice and wonderful, though.
Uh-huh.
Swan Ellis's family couldn't have treated me no better.
Aw.
They were just wonderful people.
Ellis Gray.
Uh-huh.
And what was your maiden name?
Rowland, Rowland.
Rowland?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And did you say you were an artist or are an artist?
Well, I wouldn't say I was an artist. I done a little painting,
Uh-huh.
but,
Right. So what did you do when you moved to the island?
what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in them days, there was nothing nobody done. You know what I mean? The men fished. That was their living.
Right.
And the women, my gosh, did you know the women hired out for $2 a week helping housework?
No.
I mean, I didn't know no women that really done it, but it was older teenage girls that hired out.
Ah. Uh-huh.
And cattle would come and scrape their horns at night on the side of the house.
Oh my gosh.
And the horses.
Boarding.
She was looking for her hat, or she wanted me to find her straw hat, and I couldn't find it.
And back over in there, on the other side of that building there was like a small pond, and that was where the horses and things with their watering hole. They'd go there to drink.
Oh, right over there?
Yeah, just the other side of that big shop there.
Oh my gosh. Now, how was it that you were able to buy a church? Because they united.
They split up, and then they built this one. I guess it was only about 6 years old when it went down.
Mm-hmm.
So the trustees, you know,
Right.
they
There you go. A little shade now.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
I can even see through the glasses a little bit.
Oh. And so was this the northern church or the southern?
They call this Methodist Church North.
Methodist Church North. Okay.
And this used to be known as Frog Marsh. And my God, the frogs.
Oh.
You wouldn't believe it, and you never see a frog now. Only
Really?
them little teeny tiny green frogs. you know.
Right.
But I mean the good fat happy toads.
Uh-huh.
There'd be hundreds of them in the evening come up here in the yard.
Oh my gosh. And I guess back then you didn't have buildings, right? Were you sort of all by yourself back here?
All by myself
Really?
from down to that road, Harbor Road, right on up. Then it was this, and there was nothing else. And then right on up, maybe halfway to the end of the road up there, just one more house.
Oh my gracious. And so what year did your husband pass away?
In, I believe it was, he's been dead 13 years anyway.
Oh, okay. So most of your time on the island, he was still living, and
Oh yeah, he fished and done carpenter work in the, later years. But when he first come down, he was fishing.
Right. And so what kind of changes have you seen in Avon since you've been here?
Well, there were no cars. I believe there was one car when I first came.
Wow.
And to go to Buxton was a all-day trip.
Just to Buxton.
Just to Buxton.
Wow.
And you've been somewhere. So if you've been to Buxton, you've been on a trip.
Right. Is Buxton where people would go to get their business done? Was that sort of the
Well,
county?
Matteo was
Ah.
town seat, I guess you call it.
Mm-hmm. I see. And how many children did you have?
5.
5 children.
There's a phone. Call me when you get finished, and I'll come back and fix your lunch.
Okay, thank you.
Do you own the gallery? Oh, that's nice. Are you an artist?
Well, I don't have anything on the walls right now, but I don't have time to paint it.
Yeah. When you have your business, it's
I think, I'm going to do it, and then if I'm a morning person,
uh-huh.
I'm home at night and do it.
Right. My name's Barbara Blake, by the way, and I live over near Harkers Island in Carteret County.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. And really, one of the things I was trying to find out about is boat building. My husband's a boat builder, and I'm collecting oral histories for the Park Service, but I heard that Avon was built a lot of boats here in the past.
They did years ago before I came down.
Oh, okay.
There was a lot of cedar trees, and ships come from north, so they say,
Uh-huh.
and they'd buy the lumber and build them big fishing boats
Right.
from, up north, like New York and them places. Of 'cause I didn't know nothing about it, only what they said.
And when you
But
got
they-
here, they weren't building much anymore?
They weren't building no big boats, no.
Uh-huh.
A guy named Willie Austin was building small boats, you know, like
Oh,
rowboats
right.
and stuff like that.
And where was his place?
On McMullen Road, all the way down, almost to the end.
Is that where the fish houses are?
And yeah, the other side of the fish house is down that road.
Okay.
He's dead now, too. But I'll tell you who he's kin to.
Okay.
Bonita Williams.
Uh-huh.
You know her?
No, but somebody has mentioned her name to me.
Yeah, that was her father.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll look her up later on and see if I can find her.
She lives on McMullen Road. As you go across the stop sign,
Uh-huh.
the second house.
Okay. By that old hotel?
Yeah, past the old hotel. Oh, I think she still has a lot of ornaments and stuff in the yard.
Okay. So that was a hotel there, huh?
Yeah,
For as long as you can remember?
her father, well, they built that after I was down here.
Okay.
Her father-in-law built it, Charlie Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Or he had it built, he didn't build it. And they run it for a hotel for a little while.
Okay. Because I notice now they're apartments.
Yeah.
And when you moved here, was Avon called Avon or was it called Kinnikee?
It was mostly called Kinnikee. Maybe 10 years, maybe give or take some. They had changed it to Avon.
Okay.
But everybody loved Kinnikee the best. It was the post office, I think.
Oh,
Changed
right.
it. And they still call it Kinnikee, if you notice, on
Yeah.
top of the water tower and everything.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Well, Kinnikee's a beautiful name.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
Fact is, I love Indians.
Uh-huh. And so how was it raising 5 children in Kinnikee?
Well, we was all very poor,
Uh-huh.
but we was all satisfied. Nobody griped about nothing. Nobody had nothing. Nobody didn't want nothing.
Right. Well,
Now
that's-
they got everything and they want more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's strange how that is, isn't it?
Everybody went to church. Everybody.
And you attended the Methodist church?
No, I was really a Nazarene, but when I come down here, I joined the assembly, the one on the harbor.
Oh.
It was down Old Main Road then.
Uh-huh. Was that already established when you moved here, the Assembly of God?
That had just started.
Okay. Yeah, I was interviewing somebody up in Waves, and it seems like they said the preacher from the Assembly of God from Avon came up their way and started a church up their way, too.
More than likely, I think her name was, or I know her name was Mrs. Chambers.
I was a woman, so yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I met her. She used to go to my mother-in-law's all the time. She was a real nice lady.
Well, Miss Gray, when people go to the same church for years, such as the Methodist, now why do you think they switched to the Assembly of God when that was a brand new church?
Well, you know how it is when people get together, they get to wrangling amongst each other, I guess, and they just break up.
Right.
But it was a feud going on in them days.
Was it part of when the Methodist Church united, there was disagreement?
Yeah, when they busted up, they told me that they were in disagreement. So half of them went and had this church built, and the other half stayed down in the other church.
Uh-huh.
Of course, that's not the original church. The original church was torn down, and my husband built that church.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice? And so then part of that disagreement, maybe the Assembly of God came in and they found a new church they could go to.
That's probably how it happened.
Yeah. And that wasn't too different from the Methodist church?
was a lot different.
Is it?
Are you Methodist?
No, actually, I was raised Catholic.
Oh, well, the Methodist, is dead, 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 and the assembly is up, up, up.
Oh, more
Uh,
effervescent or energetic?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
More singing and clapping.
Yeah,
and,
I
that's
know
nice.
that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And did the Assembly of God have camp meetings and revivals?
Oh, yeah, they said they had big tents come in, and I don't remember that either. I was just after it all started.
Okay. Well, do you remember when people would transportation included those little sailboats?
Oh, yeah, the mail come in every day
Uh-huh.
on a sailboat, and there was a old man named Tom Mickens that had a horse and cart. And the old post office, oh, I wish I had that picture. It looked like a toilet. An old dilapidated toilet.
The post office?
A little like that, and old ragged boards.
You mean like an outhouse?
Huh?
It looked like an outhouse?
Yeah. Yeah. Old crooked steps that you go up. Of course, that's Bonita's father-in-law or next father-in-law, so don't say anything about it.
I won't.
But there was a picture of him standing on the steps. He was an old man with a long, twisted mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that snapshot.
So that was one tiny little post office.
One ton, and the whole village, I say the whole village, the younger folks and not so old folks, would leave and go down to the shore side, down where they call Benny's Landing, that's where it was.
Okay.
And sit on the shore side and wait for that sailboat to come in.
Oh.
And Mr. Tom would take his horse, and the boat would send it in a rowboat, and Mr. Tom would wait out in the water and bring the bags of mail in, or bring the one letter in one night.
Right.
But he brought that freight in and delivered it around, and we'd all sit there and watch it. Then stand and wait for Mr. Charlie to overhaul the mail.
Okay. Overhaul the mail.
Yep.
And that must have been one of the exciting points of the day to see what mail came in.
Oh gosh, we wouldn't have missed it for nothing. We all sit there on the shore side with the kids.
What time would it come in?
And well, at different times, it was all according how the weather was,
Oh, and the tides.
I would say maybe 12 o'clock, I would say, because it came from Matteo
Right.
and had to stop them places, Rodanthe,
Oh, okay.
and them places.
Yeah. So when you had 5 children here, did you have midwives or?
Well, I had 2 in New York
Oh.
before I come down. They
Okay.
were babies when I come. And Miss Annie Mickens was one midwife for one of my boys, and Miss Omi Mickens, she was the other midwife.
Omi Meekins.
Uh-huh.
And what was the first one?
Miss Annie Mickens.
Annie Meekins. And did they help deliver your babies?
Oh, did they deliver them
In the house?
in the
How
house?
about that? And did they have any interesting techniques?
Did they? Only that they were midwives.
Mm-hmm.
Homemade midwives. They never went to no nursing school or nothing that I know of.
Yeah. Have you ever heard, I was reading about some of the old midwife techniques, and I read they used to attach a raisin to the baby's umbilical cord to help dry it out. Did you ever hear
I've
that?
forgotten if they did.
Yeah. And so they didn't have any, what decade was that?
That was in the 30s.
And so there wasn't a doctor here, there were midwives.
They may have been a off and on doctor to Hatteras then,
Oh, okay.
but I didn't have him if he was here then.
Right. And did you have pretty good births, or did you have any problems? Were they Pretty easy as far as.
Easy. What do
Well,
you
you
mean,
know, I'm
easy?
not such thing as easy.
No, everything went fine as far as that goes.
Yeah. And did the midwives stay with you for a while after the birth and help out?
No, they just helped with the birth, and then maybe they come back
Okay.
1 or 2 mornings to dress it, and that's all.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
And that's when I had a girl staying with me for $2 a week.
Oh, and she helped out.
Yeah.
How long did she stay with you?
Oh, I would say a week.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, back then, when my youngest daughter was born, she was born in Buxton in the hospital. They had a sort of a hospital down there then, and she was born there. And what was I going to say?
Well, you were talking about the girl that stayed with you for $2 a day. And then you said back then, one daughter was born in the hospital in Buxton.
Yeah, no, what was I going to say about Cheryl? There was a doctor then, and his name was Dr. Hornstein,
Uh-huh.
and he was a nice man.
Okay. Well, if it took all day to get there, that must have been rough when you were in labor.
Well, I went down there for a checkup, and it was about a month before she was supposed to be born.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, "How would you like to have your baby born tonight?" I said, "Well, I ain't sick." He said, "That's all right." So he sent me back home, and my husband took me back, and the next day I had Cheryl.
He just knew that that baby was coming that night?
I think he must have forced labor. He wanted to go somewhere, is what it was. That's what we accused him of.
Oh my gosh.
She was one beautiful baby. Now, I ain't just saying that. She had hair you wouldn't believe. And I guess where it was wet and everything, it was curled in little ringlets all over her head.
Oh my gosh.
And the doctor was a Jew, and he had black curly hair just like that.
Uh-huh.
And his wife was a nurse, and she'd tease him about that baby looking so near like him.
Oh my gosh.
But people, you don't believe that people made trips up from Buxton to come look at Cheryl.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that Cheryl that was just here?
No, that was Libby. Cheryl lives in Newport News.
Oh, okay. How many of your children still live on the island?
Johnny, that campground over there, that's my
Uh-huh.
son Johnny.
Okay.
And Libby lives up the road, and Mary Lou lives to Hatteras.
Oh,
And Ellis, he lives in Florida.
okay. And you must have a lot of grandchildren.
Yeah, I believe I got 9 or 10.
It must
Not grandchildren,
great-grandchildren.
great-grandchildren, and I got 2 great-great-grandchildren.
Gee
A
whiz.
little boy and a little girl.
And do they live right here too?
Liam lives up the road here. He's not 2 yet. And Olivia lives to Buxton.
Aw. What do you think it's like for children to grow up here these days compared to when your children grew up?
Well, I'll tell you, back then it seemed to me like kids behaved better than they do now.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's a lot of drugs now and stuff like that, but then there was liquor. Liquor's a drug.
Right. Well, where did people get liquor back then? Did they make it?
Well, I don't know where they got it, but they had stuff they called corn liquor.
Oh, yeah. Like moonshine.
Yeah. That probably come from across the Sound or up around Matteo.
Uh-huh. And were there dances and social events like that when you lived here?
Yeah, there was, little get-together in people's houses.
Yeah.
And then there was a place they called, I believe it was Breeze Inn, where they sold ice cream and My brother-in-law had a little ice cream shop out there on where the main highway is.
Uh-huh. Well, were the Islanders very accepting of you since you were from New York?
Oh, everyone treated me nice, but his folks treated me super.
Oh.
And never had nobody treat me no better than they did.
Oh, that's really nice. Did your folks come down and visit you here?
Well, when we moved down here, my mother had just died. And my father, he had committed suicide about when I was 2 years old. He was a policeman in New York.
Wow.
And the thing was, they didn't know whether he really committed suicide or he got threatening notes. He was closing down the houses of prostitution, and he got threatening notes that they were going to kill him, the mobsters. But then he left suicide notes, so they don't know whether he was forced to do it. Anyway, he went to serve papers in Brooklyn on a family that run a house of prostitution in Patchogue, and he was found shot to death in her bathroom.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds suspicious, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Well, did the character of the people strike you different here than how so?
Well, you know how people in larger towns look and dress, even back then. Back here, everybody wore sunbonnets, and it was kind of neat to first see it.
Yeah. And do you think the people here were maybe more church-oriented and family-oriented for being in a small village?
Yeah, I think there were a whole lot more.
Yeah.
We went to church, but we just went to church. We weren't as excited as they do when the Nazarene was nearly like the assembly. They shouted and stuff like that. And they were almost all Dutch people.
Dutch people? Really?
Sayville was a town next to us, and they had a fleet of Dutch fishing vessels that the people lived there in Sayville, and they all come up to church to Patchogue. Yeah.
I see, yeah. Do you still get to church much?
No, I haven't been in a long time.
Does the preacher come visit you every now and
Not very
again?
often, no.
Yeah.
I think he's been here twice since I've been sick. I know it's been twice.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you've been sick.
Well, not sick, but not well. I can't walk. I got diabetes, and it settled in my legs. And my legs hurt continually. And I can't walk.
Where do you have to go to the doctor when you go?
Right out here now.
Oh, there's a clinic.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Almost by the stoplight.
Oh, well, that's handy. That beats having to go all the way to Elizabeth City or Manio or, Hatteras. Did you ever go to Old Christmas in Rodanthe?
Yeah.
How'd you like that?
That was fun. I went a couple of times.
What did you see when you went there?
Bunch of drunks. That's about all.
And was it a square dance?
Yeah, sort of like that. It was a wild get-together.
Right. And when you went, did they have the sort of plays that they used to do, the skits?
I don't think they did then. It was years and years ago when I first come down.
Oh, okay. Well, there's just plenty interesting.
My husband would always go, but he was glad enough to leave me home.
Yeah.
He wanted to have a ball.
Right, kick up his heels a little bit.
Yeah.
Boy, we have these same bees at our house, these carpenter bees.
Is that what they are?
I think so. Ours drill holes in the wood of our house.
Well, there used to be an old house right there, and boys, them things would bore into them, but I thought these were bumblebees.
Yeah, well, maybe they are, because I don't see them boring anywhere, but boy. Well, do you notice any difference between the communities here? Do you think Avon's very different from Rodanthe, or Rodanthe from Buxton, or
Yeah, there's a whole lot different.
what kind of difference do you notice?
What do you mean, like more friendly, or?
Yeah, just what sets it
It
apart.
used to be more friendly, I would think,
Avon?
and Rodanthe and Buxton. Most of Buxton people used to live to Avon till after a big storm, and a lot of Ellis's folks all moved to Buxton.
Really? They
Yeah.
moved out of Avon?
Yeah.
Because
This house was set in a big church, but it had a great big another, room, a L shape onto it.
uh-huh.
Set down there in the marsh, where the weeds are growing.
Right.
And that 44 storm took it and took it across the road and over the sand hills there and out there where they call the Dyken, where you come in.
Really?
You see some trailers.
Uh-huh.
As you come in Old Avon Village, they call that the Dyken. It took it and put it nearly about to the Dyken, that great big church.
You're kidding.
So that L shape had to be tore off of it. And the Red Cross drug it back. We was the last house back. And they said 98% of the houses was washed off of the blocks and away from their land.
That was the 44 storm?
That was the 44.
Where
that
were you?
That was the big one.
Were you here?
Oh, yeah.
What'd you do?
Well, the first part of the storm, we was in this house. And then when the wind come around to the west, we knew we was going to get it then. So we all went up to Mr. Fields's. He lived more on the hills. And that house was packed with people even on the stairways.
Oh my gosh.
And it washed 98% of the houses.
Ah. So then after that, a lot of people had to start over with their houses. And
Yeah, the Red Cross drug them all back.
are you getting tired now? Would you like me to stop the interview?
I'm always tired. Just
Yeah.
do as long as you want.
Okay. Oh, I appreciate this. Did you say the Dyken? Is that like a dike?
Yeah, after I first come down here, a man from Keyhawk, they had dredged a dike up all around Avon and closed it in.
Ah. Just to
And
keep
where-
it from flooding all the time.
Yeah, the sea tide used to run in all the time
Ah.
too. As you come in Old Avon past the stoplight, maybe 500 feet, the Dyken's right there. It don't look like a Dyken now. There's trailers and everything else
Uh-huh.
there now, and it's been shoved down.
Okay. Do you remember the Great Sand Wave?
The great sound wave.
Sand wave? I read an old magazine article that said there was a big sand dune that kind of moved through Avon.
No, I don't remember that, but there were great big sand dunes here.
Oh, were they?
I mean high sand dunes. Yeah.
And did they disappear after that big storm?
Seemed like they blew away. A whole graveyard out that way blew out. And my husband and his brother, the skeletons was laying there with the buttons where they rotted off of the shirts. So they dug them all up and took them down the road and buried them in another graveyard.
Aw.
That was an old graveyard.
The coffins were gone.
Yeah, everything rotted away. Just the skeletons laying there.
Oh my gosh. How did people used to have funerals in the 30s and the 40s here? You didn't have any undertaker, did you?
No, there was a woman named Marie Hooper. They used to get her to come in and dress the dead person. person.
Ah.
And then they'd keep them up a day if it wasn't too hot. They weren't embalmed or nothing.
Right.
And they just had their ordinary funeral.
Marie Hooper, was she from Waves?
No, she was from up the up the street here.
Okay.
She was originally from Avon.
Then when you say...
I guess I was about the only outsider down here in them days.
And when you say she would dress the dead, she would put the clothes, their
And
burial
wash
clothes,
'em
and
and,
wash them, prepare them. And then people used to sit up with the dead, didn't they?
Yeah, I'd sit up with them.
You stay awake all night when you do that?
Yeah.
And what was the idea behind doing that?
No, I don't know unless it was to keep the animals away.
Ah, right.
You know, there used to be rats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know with that, but that's what I always saw.
Yeah.
It surely wasn't to keep the dead person from running away, was it?
I don't think so. And I wondered if it was a sign of respect, too, to just accompany, keep
Yeah,
the company, you know.
It might have been.
Yeah. Gosh. I heard there was a little village right south of Avon that used to be there, too, that's not there anymore.
Yeah, I guess they call that. That was Little Kinnikeet up here, and this was Big Kinnikeet.
Right where we are is Big Kinnikeet?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a Coast Guard station, about halfway between the stoplight and the food line, in that section somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And they had these big horses with the big feet,
Clydesdales. Really?
Yeah.
What'd they do with those?
Well, that was their transportation
Uh-huh.
in them days. But they got rid of them soon after I come down.
Uh-huh. And they'd do that every single day, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
That's something. It must have been fun to stop at little stores at the different villages and visit a little bit on a trip like that.
One of the Anderson boys used to come here and visit the girls. Stockton, I think he was the youngest one.
Uh-huh. How many daughters did you have?
3.
3 daughters. Wow. And so the little village that was south of here, was it near the Coast Guard station?
Yeah, I imagine it was Coast Guard families. I would imagine.
Did that have a name?
Only Big Kinnikeet is all I know.
Okay. And what was Little Kinnikeet then?
You know where that Coast Guard station about 5 miles up the road? That was Little Kinnikeet. There was a village there.
Is there any remnants of that anymore?
Yeah, this Coast Guard station's still there.
How about like a foundation of houses or anything like
Could
that?
be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a long time. There's a road that goes in there right to the station.
Did you ever visit that village?
Oh, yeah. There was a graveyard up there, too.
Ah. And what would bring everybody together from all the villages?
Church meetings.
Ah, that's nice. And how about weddings and things like that?
Well, most of them just got married by the Justice of Peace or went to Elizabeth City or somewhere like that.
Oh, they didn't make as big a deal out of it as they do these days.
I don't remember no big weddings anybody had.
Uh-huh.
It was very poor back then.
Right.
Very poor.
Gosh. Yeah,
And it was 20 years before I got back to New York.
Really? Wow.
Though I had big promises of going back every year, but it never happened.
What was it like to go back after 20 years?
Oh, it was different.
Yeah. Yeah, you must have felt like you were in a different world here when you went back there to see
Oh,
them.
yeah. You remember John Mitchell, Attorney General, forgot who he was under. Kennedy, maybe. You know, he was the Attorney General of the United States. He lived about 6 houses from us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He went to school with me,
Uh-huh.
and he started, and the kids poked fun at him. I mean, it's not kids are cruel. We didn't,
Yeah.
because there was about 4 of us that played together.
Uh-huh. Did you ever go fishing with your husband?
Yeah.
How'd you like that?
It's all right when we didn't get in a row. I remember he was going to take us out in the boat in the middle of the day on a little picnic. And I was from New York, and I never drove a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he puts me at the wheel and says, starboard, this way. That way, I didn't even know what starboard meant. I run her aground. That was the wrong thing to do. Oh, we stayed aground for I don't know how long, and his mouth was to go and continue.
Oh, no. That's a bad situation to be in, isn't it? When you're
But he used to go out and fish all night long. And neighbors sometime come and spend the night with you, you know.
Right.
They see a thundercloud come up, and they'd come with the whole gang of kids to spend the night.
At your house?
Yeah, at your house.
Oh, okay. And why did they do that?
Of course, they were scared of thunderstorms and stuff like that.
So everybody used to just kind of camp out with each other every so often.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice. Do you think there's still a high degree of neighborliness in Avon like there used to be?
No, it's all gone.
Oh.
Yeah, you never see nobody anymore.
Everybody's so busy now, aren't they?
Yeah, they all got jobs.
Yeah. Why do you think there's a drug problem with the kids? Are they bored or?
I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that it's something new, like it used to be whiskey.
Yeah.
Kids used to think it was something to do that. They didn't realize he got hooked.
Right. Well, that's sad. I hope that problem goes away. I guess if anybody stays on the island to work nowadays, it's got to be something with tourism, huh? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice that your daughter has that art gallery.
Yeah, that's nice.
Supporting the local artists and...
You ought to go over there and visit and see.
I'm going to. I want to see that.
You might see a picture I painted.
Oh, good. Do you have anything in there?
Yeah, I know I got one in there.
Uh-huh. Oh, Miss Gray, well, it's getting kind of warm out here, so maybe we should...
Yeah, I'm getting kind of hot.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. It's at the stroke of midnight. It's the stroke of noon, so I'll quit.
Yes,
There it goes.